What up, Naughty Steppers? It's Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel. And it's time for another opinion piece slash discussion based video following on from others in recent weeks where I've asked you, for example, whether you thought headband culture was ruining dubstep amongst several other things, all of which I shall link at various points in this video as well as in the end screen slash outro. But today's question is in keeping with dubstep music, and what I want to know from you guys is whether you think there is just too much of it being released at the moment. Different to whether too much of it sounds the same or at least very similar. A question which I posed to you guys a few weeks ago and which I shall link here. But yeah, this is solely about whether you think there is just too much of it generally. Putting forward the question as to whether there is too much of it being released at the moment, that being a bad thing, so I'm going to be arguing for the motion but also against it, that being that there isn't too much of it being released at the moment, which of course is fine. That's probably a good thing. I don't think there being too much of anything could be a good thing. I think that's the point of the phrase too much, you know. It's never really a good thing. It's a fact that there is new dubstep being released all the time, and by that I mean every day without fail, and arguably more so than ever. It's extremely oversaturated right now. And weirdly enough, this has correlated with me not enjoying the genre as much over the last few years. You know, it's been a fair while since I really enjoyed dubstep generally in an across the board sort of way. Maybe it was the novelty of listening to it in those first few years, but that was about 6 years or so, and you would think that novelty wears off much quicker than that. Up until 2016, I was in love with a large majority of stuff coming out at the top end of the genre. The quality was maddening. But ever since then, the general standard really has dipped, and hugely so. And is that to do with the amount of dubstep music that there is available to us today? That's what I want to know from you guys. So yeah, as usual, what I'm going to do here is give a couple of points for and a couple of points against the motion, then try to come to some sort of conclusion for myself before passing the question off to you guys. And the first point that I want to raise in favour of the motion, that there is too much dubstep being released at the moment, is that yeah, there is, and this is because certain labels are just pushing for release after release, and this doesn't show any signs of slowing down soon. There are big labels, producers want to get on these labels, the labels seek them out and assign them a project and give them a release date to work to. This means when working to a certain date or time that the music is rushed and not as good as it could be. Barring a few exceptions, this is pretty much always how it is. And yeah, this is partly what I mean by there being too much. You know, the label wants the music, the producer has to make it within a certain time frame, and that just means that producing the music happens in a non-organic, pretty rushed way. Secondly, in favour of the motion that there is too much dubstep being released at the moment, I would say it also falls on the independent artist, the majority of which, without a huge following, feel that they have to put out stuff quickly to satisfy demand, and they do. Again, this makes it rushed and simply not as good as it could be, and I know this is a big problem for many producers out there. But then again, with both of these points, do you fault the producer or the label, or do you fault the consumer and consumerism generally, social media, and this culture that we live in now of just wanting more and more and more all the time? It certainly isn't healthy, and I can't imagine that it helps the producer or the label in any way at all. But on the flip side of this motion, and my first point against that, saying that there actually isn't too much dubstep being released at the moment, what I could say is that yes, whilst there is undoubtedly a lot, it's actually fine and manageable, and we have a good amount of choice, not too much. You could look at how much dubstep there is being released at the moment and think, you know, it's not actually overwhelming. We just have a lot of different styles and sound designs and ways of producing that kind of music. And as you all know, we have many different types of dubstep within the main umbrella term that is dubstep. You know, we've got riddim, brostep, heavy metal step, tear out, melodic dubstep, you know, the list goes on. we have variety, and actually it's a nice amount to pick and choose from. And the second point that I want to raise against the motion that there is too much dubstep being released at the moment is that, you know, within the wide context of music, there really isn't that much dubstep being released at all in comparison to other main genres in the appreciation of music generally. Think about pop, think about rock, think about R&B. Dubstep is just catching up in terms of people trying it out. It's still relatively new within the spectrum of music. And, you know, everything now is just working towards the general canon of dubstep. I mentioned a few subgenres not too long ago, but different styles are coming out of dubstep constantly, and people want to try these things out. You know, you even have people mixing psytrance with dubstep at the moment. And why not? You know, it's cool, you know, people are doing new things with the genre, and the influx is just going to keep coming. So yeah, it may be a little bit too much, but I would actually look at it from the opposite angle. You know, it's not too much, and it's just people trying these new things out. That is how it is. But in terms of my personal opinion, once again, I would have to say that I'm somewhere in the middle of this question. There is undoubtedly loads of dubstep being released at the moment. It's almost obscene, and the general quality today is pretty poor because of that way of being, considering how it's been before. People demand more, producers produce more, labels release more for specific times, the music is rushed, and it just keeps on going. However, even beyond the level of variety, which I feel we do have plenty of in dubstep music, on a level of quality, I always end up having a few select tracks and EPs that I enjoy immensely by the end of the year. When it comes to my yearly favourites in December, I always have very solid lists with special mentions as well, and surely that's all I need, right? In a way, I should even be grateful that there is less to choose from when making those lists. Makes it way easier for me. But then again, I remember that those 200 or so tracks is out of the 25 to 30,000 that I listen to every year. So yeah, quite a lot of wading to do. Now the question, of course, that I pass off to you guys is whether you think there is too much dubstep being released at the moment. But on top of that, I also want to know, would you take having half the dubstep music released if it meant that the general and overall quality significantly increased? Loads of dubstep with the hope of liking some of it along the way, which is what we have now, or a lot less with a higher chance of it being better, cause more time and thought goes into it. You'd have the same amount of producers, just less music from them, as they'd be working on particular projects for a much longer time. That way, also, the anticipation and hype for every project would be much bigger, and honestly, the thought of that does sound amazing. But those are my questions to you guys. Get your thoughts, views, and opinions in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're yet to, social media accounts are in the description box down below. Again, past opinion pieces will be available in the end screen and outro. And if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure, as always, to keep it naughty and stay safe, and I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Peace out.